Welcome to the Dawn of Intuition. I'm your host, Jadi Kindred, and this is the time to awaken to a new way of being. Are you feeling an inner call to make the world a better place or to live more joyfully? We each have this inner compass guiding us to our own unique purpose and gifts. As an intuition and empowerment expert, I dare you to take action on that gut feeling or inner knowing. Intuition is simply a muscle that needs to be strengthened. Whether you need it personally or professionally, your intuitive insights create space for new opportunities. Stay tuned with me for tips and tricks on listening to those quiet whispers of wisdom, my next retreat dates, or how to work with me. Are you ready to live the life of your dreams with more joy and ease? The Dawn of Intuition starts now. Welcome everyone to Transformation Talk Radio Show, The Dawn of Intuition, Awaken to a New Way of Being. Today's topic is practical steps to building confidence with your intuition. I am so excited to have my twin sister back with me on to have a really fun, informal discussion about some practical steps to increase our confidence. Welcome, Jazz.
Thank you. I'm excited to dive into this topic. So I want to talk about the book that you wrote in 2021, Intuitive Business Connections, Grow a Business from 0 to 6 Figures in an Intuitive Way. This was actually an Amazon bestseller. And so if anyone hasn't read it, you can find it on Amazon or JD's website. Now, I want to dive into one of my favorite chapters, which is called Chapter 6, Infinite Routes.
and we laugh because she said that, before we pressed record, and I said, no, it's roots. She said, no, it's routes. And I said, no, it's roots. And then we stopped and we had to look this up. And it's like, there's actually two ways to pronounce this word. And I was like, I had no idea that was even an option to pronounce that word, route. I've never said that ever in my life. And it was like, we're identical twins grew up the same, went to the same schools, and we how drastically our views of even the same word are. And I think it really ties into this chapter. So why did you like this chapter, Jazz?
Well, I loved how you told a story about how you took a wrong turn just traveling, and it got you to the exact same place at the exact same time. And that whole time you were deviating, you just thought you're way off track. This is going to be horrible. But it was just a nice life lesson that it's okay if you go off track. You are going to make it to the where you need to be at the right time. You don't need to judge that.
Yeah.
And do you have anything to add to that story?
Well, give some more context because, being a minute late to things is maybe not the end of the world, but I was actually back in my hometown and holding a retreat on how to connect intuitively with animals. So there's a group of people there and I needed to be on time, open the door, set up. I was, a bit stressed. And so I put on, this Google Maps and I was, lost in my mind, lost in my brain, and I would take the wrong turn. And then I was like, oh no. And then the Google map would just auto correct and just new destination. And it was always the same arrival time. And I was like, oh, brilliant. And then I was lost in my thoughts again, and I took another wrong turn. And I was like, oh my gosh, how can I do this twice in the same short drive? And it was like, oh, it's okay. And it was not so non-judgmental. And I just remember how this huge epiphany aha moment during my drive to this retreat where I share with everyone, and I wrote it in my book it was just such a visual example of there's no judgment. We have this maybe this guidance, this compass of, okay, head there, go to this direction. Oh, we deviate. And there's no judgment. It just auto-corrects and we arrive at the same time, which is a different path. And this was such a random story. When we were younger, we used to race these mini stock cars. And then we'd practice. We'd go to the track. And I'm curious, actually, your experience of this, because I was meditating one day, like I meditated and got all these ideas for every chapter. And this story came to mind. And I was like, what a random story. But, I'm sure hopefully will have impact for someone. So, and then going to the track on the weekends and driving our father's like Pro 4 car, which is super fast. And like, you put your foot to the gas for 3 seconds max and then brake. Like it has to be fast. And I remember looking up and there was no rear view mirror. I was like, well, how can you drive? I was like, Dad, how can you drive? And how do you know if someone's not going to hit you? Like for our cars, it was much lower. We were always looking in the back, seeing who was behind us. Well, I was, at least. I don't know how you drive. And then Dad told me, he's like, yeah, there's no time for that. There's no time. That's 1 second. If you have your gas, if you are on gas for 3 seconds, you have not even 1 second to waste looking up at who's behind you. And for me as a young girl, that was another profound aha moment. It was like, wow, okay, I need to look ahead and trust my line. We learned our cars were so slow, we had to learn how to drive a really good line. I only focus on in driving my best line in order to actually have a chance to stay out ahead in front.
Yes.
But what was your experience of that? Like, did you have an epiphany moment or what?
I did not have profound moments at the racetrack like you did, but I do love that story.
You didn't? Oh, that's so well. I receive guidance in any way, in any form, on any occasion. I'm open to learning at all times, like all times.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was walking in the forest just the other day, and anytime I talk to like I'm calling mom and I'm walking through the forest, and literally like anytime I'm talking to her, there's always this same little brown frog that like jumps past, goes across my path. Like every time I talk to her, and I'm not talking to her every time I go on the path, and anytime I'm on the trail by myself, I don't run into these frogs. So I'm just open to like, okay, what is that message? Like I'm super open to what was I talking about? What is that message? And I want to be really open to the signs. I don't want to be asleep. I don't want to be asleep to the mystery of the unknown and the magic of, we talk about this all the time, and it's a conscious efforting. It's a conscious effort to choose to live with my eyes open or to live asleep with my eyes closed. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are in this same track through life with their eyes closed, and they're missing a lot of signs. They're missing a lot of guidance. Yeah. So those are fun.
Well, and I want to bring that back to the book, because I really like your chapter 5. It's all in the question.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about that one?
Yeah, it's we, in order to receive answers, we need to first ask a question. And that question can simply be, what do I need to know right now for my high, or what is, where should I go? What should, I don't want to say this should. What could I do in the situation for the highest benefit of everyone involved? Like, we first need to ask ourselves questions before we can sit and receive these answers. And again, I speak about this all the time, how quickly answers come.
Yeah. Well, and I want to add to that, it's not about asking your questions, it's about asking the right questions. Because if you say, why does my life suck so bad? You're going to get different answers than, what do I need to do right now to improve my life? That feels different. And you're going to get different answers. So how you ask the question is important too.
Brilliant. Yeah. Lessons learned. We do this often at the end of the year of these reflection. And I write this in my book as well. 50, well, I didn't write all of them, but my favorite year-end reflection questions, because I'll go through a year and feel like I didn't learn any lessons. I don't have any new friends. I didn't read any new books. And it's like, that's actually really not true. Every year, at the end of the year, I take time, and literally it takes me maybe 1 hour to answer 50 questions. And I look at like, wow, this is a new group of friends I've manifested. These are the list of books I read, or audiobooks, or courses I've taken. It's such a nice example of growth. If we're not growing, we're dying. The whole expression that doesn't come from me. If we're not growing, we're dying. When I had a business coach, my homework was reading 3 personal or professional development books a month. He's like, JD, how can you expect ever for your company to change if you don't change? And that was my homework, was I need to constantly level up in order to level up my company. So yeah, it's the questions we ask ourselves for managers, for business owners, the questions you ask your team to be able to reflect, to see things in a different light. You're talking a lot about reframing, the social worker in you is really coming out, and you remind, and it's a great message. Reframe. I tend to always, you correct me with that a lot too. Like, JD, stop saying always and never and da 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 da. Like, okay, but I always like this. I'm always feeling anxious. No, you don't. So you teach me this. You're a big teacher about mental health. You're really, like, I think, a mental health coach. But anyways, yeah, the importance of questions. And it's also fun
I
to,
do. I love your year-end reflection questions that I got from your book, because it allowed me to take note of the highlights, but also it allowed me to relive those moments where I felt really proud of myself. And it allowed me to realign to my intentions for the new year and my new goals. And it's now my yearly practice for sure. That is very impactful. So thank you for that.
yeah. And just also celebrating our successes, and we, at the end of the year, we read, we like to read out. It's like we have coffee together and we read out our reflections of the year. And it's a nice summary for the people closest to you and your loved ones or your partner. Sometimes, I would do this with a partner and I had no idea their lessons learned or their regrets for the year, or I had no idea. And I was living with them. I saw them 24/7 and I had no idea all of the things that were happening for them. And so it's a beautiful practice, and asking good questions to yourself and your team and your partners. And yeah, I love questions.
Do you have a favorite chapter in your book?
I like so many chapters. Oh gosh, I like so many chapters. One that has a lot of impact for people is, I think it's chapter 61, and it's the 101 Dream List, and encouraging people to stop and really feel and remind themselves of some of their childhood dreams. It doesn't even have to be childhood, just dreams when they were younger, or that have been really pushed down deep down. Because I love to speak about following your joy. Follow your joy, follow your joy. This is such a high consciousness, a high vibration. And I feel this is the most important thing, living in joy. And when I was at my lowest and I felt like, I especially after big things like big events. And for me, it was, publishing this book was a big event. I crashed and I was like, oh, well, I'm done that. Now I have no other goals. And I was really comfortable in life. And I just like, okay, I've accomplished everything I want. I have no more goals. And I was like, mid-30s, I'm done. It's like, well, I'm sure I have more to contribute. I'm sure I can figure out some more goals. But at that time, I couldn't think of even one. And so I did this practice of sitting down, closing my eyes, and just channeling, just writing as many things without logic, just letting my body write all of my dreams. And some were small and some were big. And I look back when I'm like, oh, what should I do? I have this month off. Babe. I have this month off now. Like, what am I going to do for this month off? And I can go back and look and go, oh, right. I forgot that was a dream of mine. And just, yeah, work away at it. So people really like that practice. I give that homework a lot when I do coaching. Is people don't reflect a lot of in their life and their dreams of what they want anymore. People are so stuck in life 101. It's like, hey, what about your dreams 101?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I like how you said that initially when you added to your list, they were small little things, and then you would see what your partner wrote. Do you want to share that story?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was just like, okay, you have 100, I have 101 lines on a piece of paper. And so one, I'd be like, okay, I want to see the Taj Mahal in India. And then I would reflect back with my partner, and he wrote, I want to see the seven wonders of the world. And I went, oh, we have the exact same line on the exact same piece of paper. And I saw, like, I wanted just one thing. I asked for one thing, which I thought was pretty huge and massive, to fly across the world, northern India, to see the Taj Mahal. That's massive in my brain. But for him, he wanted to see all of the wonders of the world. And it's like, oh, it helps me reflect on the way I think. And again, how limited I am in my life, and how limiting I make myself. Why can't I say I want to see, the seven wonders? What stopped me from that? So yeah, it brought some inner questioning and reflection for sure. How was your experience? Because I know that you worked on this project as well. How was this
It
activity
was
for
a
you?
very difficult task because up
Mm.
until that point in my life, I was living like I was going to die tomorrow. So I had done everything I ever wanted to do in my life. That's what I thought. Like I was really reaching my goals really fast. And then when I was starting to feel down and stuck in life, that's when you told me, no, write the list. And what actually I did was I made what was most helpful for me was when I added the small little things in that I could implement on a daily basis that brought me joy because I was so focused on the big trips, the big goals, and I had knocked those off. But I had kind of lost myself and what do I enjoy if I were to treat my everyday life as a vacation? What what would I be doing in my day? So I had to actually be more in the present moment. Actually, that's a good thing. That's something I want to talk about with you today is you talk about how intuition comes through us when we're in the present moment, when we're mindful. But what does that mean? How can we have practical steps to be mindful?
Hmm. Well, I believe intuition can come because it's rare we're mindful. That's the ultimate goal of like life. So I think intuition can come at all times, but it's easier. I do speak about quieting the mind, quieting the light, quieting your life, living more simply. Um, but yeah, I do want to speak about a few techniques today about mindfulness, which is dropping into the present moment. So there are a few techniques I want to talk about. One, these are all practical, real practical steps today about increasing confidence and tapping back into that intuitive knowledge. And the first step is practicing gratitude. You have a really cool story. I know about gratitude, and I tend to I live in the awe of life, and I try and stay awake and see all the beauty, and I have to admit that I take a lot of things for granted. I take that I can see you for granted. I take for granted that I can everything. Like I take a lot of things for granted, and I need me. These steps are for me as well. A reminder, of course, for me of practicing gratitude. And you shared such a cool story. You went to a retreat in Costa Rica, and you had a gratitude exercise. Do you remember that story?
I do not.
Because I
Please
share,
share my story.
okay, cool. Because I share that story with everyone, really,
Okay.
about the gratitude exercise. And you guys had to write all of your gratitude down.
Oh, no, that wasn't a something I learned in Costa Rica. That was something that I teach as a mental health worker. I provide parent support groups. And the my co-facilitator brought up the topic of gratitude. And we're talking with burnt out parents who are feeling depressed and anxious. And I got really triggered because I'm like, no, people aren't there. They don't have the ability to be grateful right now. They're in a stressful situation. And I know when I'm low, I don't have the energy just to feel grateful for what I have. It doesn't help me. But my co-facilitator said, no, I want you to write down everything that you appreciate in your life. And if it's not on that list, then it's going to be gone tomorrow. It's like, whoa, okay. All of a sudden, my fingers and hands and eyesight and all the things are like really valuable that I forget, that I really, I don't give the time and day to appreciate like I should. And it was when I realized, when I changed my mindset and go, okay, if I don't honor the things that I have, it could be gone tomorrow. That immediately made me feel grateful. Yeah.
That practice was amazing because I've shared that. I was volunteering at a retreat center in Costa Rica, and I someone was really, really low. And I was like, oh, write out a gratitude list. And it's hard, when you're that low, when you're that burnt out. And so I gave him that example too. Like everything you don't write out, you're not going to have tomorrow. And something deeply profound like shifted in him, and he was like forever grateful for that comment. So we don't know our impact. I just share stories, and I like to teach through storytelling. And this is why I'm so curious about our experiences. Yeah, because it's like just it's a mechanical write your gratitude journal and at night. I think that has less impact. It's dropping in to feeling, really dropping into feeling. Like, so again, this is a step 2 of a practical step is check in with your body. Check in, stop. Like, how am I feeling? When we ask people questions, sometimes I ask people questions, how are you feeling? They're like, feeling, they don't even feel like they have a body. They live 100% in their head. It's like, well, stop some days and go, how is my body feeling? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I tired? Are my muscles sore? Whatever. One thing I really love to do, I have these retreats in my home, and when I teach yoga, one of the first practices I do before doing the sun salutation, we have hands in prayer position in front of our hearts, and I have everyone close their eyes and drop into their body and feel at their moment the heart beating. And it's a moment. You can just have your hand here, you can have it in prayer position, and drop in and feel your heart. And thank your heart. Thank your heart for never letting you down. Feeling your heartbeat. It's always there for you. And I just take my heart for granted. I take it so for granted that it is going to keep me alive. So that for me is a really nice practice. Thank you physically, heart. Thank you emotionally, heart, for opening yourself and loving humans, loving life, loving animals, even though it can be hurt. Just like my heart's so dropping in. I love gratitude and like checking in with my body. Another
Oh,
step Another step I want to talk about is focusing on your breath. And so in yoga, they have this whole philosophy of this pranayama, which is there's many translations to pranayama. One is like breath control, but when I teach yoga and in my retreats every morning, I introduce a different technique, again, because we all may resonate with a different technique, a different way of breathing. So I try and incorporate a few for when you're at a different, mindset. You can drop in to some of these different techniques. Some are the alternate nostril breathing, some are fire, breath of fire, just these different techniques. Others are these heart meditations. And I try and introduce as many as I can throughout the retreats for people to go and take home. They can take home these pranayama, focus on your breath. Another one you were talking about, another step I want to share is notice your senses. So there's an actual, if you're super overwhelmed, there's this exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you don't. So forgive me if I, missay them, but it's the idea of like, okay, you're super overwhelmed. You can just go, okay, stop. Look, notice 5 things that you can see. What are 4 things that you can hear? What are 3 things that you can touch? What are 2 things that you can taste? And what is 1 thing in this moment you can smell? And it just like, boom, brings you back into the senses. Do you ever encourage any of your clients to do this? Oh,
that's a huge part of mental health counseling,
oh,
Jadi. You're ahead of the game.
Oh, I
You
heard
sound
this.
like a mental health counselor right
Wonderful. I'm always listening to podcasts and things, and this is a good technique. I was like, oh yeah, this is brilliant. This is really great of
That's right.
bringing ourselves back into the body knowledge.
Yeah, and really being mindful with, let's say, a cup of tea, something that you just normally just do without thinking. Mindfulness is going, okay, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? And what is my taste with all the things? You're really in the moment. And again, you're reframing your mindset to go, what if this is my first or last experience? It immediately drops you into this, okay, I want to be fully present and concentrating on what I'm doing because I might never experience this again. It allows us to enjoy the present moment. But when we just keep taking every moment for granted, we don't appreciate what we have right there, and then we get sidetracked on thinking about our past and our present,
And worry.
Sorry, our past and our future.
Yeah, our worry and stress.
Yeah. Most of our lives, we are either thinking about the past or the present.
No. I wish.
No.
I wish. Maybe you.
I think about the present. Most people think about the future or the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a nice segue. Again, you led into another segue of another very important step, and you're one of my biggest teachers about that, is mindful eating. And wow, like if anyone knows Jasmine, you do not ask Jasmine any questions during mealtime. She will actively listen. There is no way she's going to answer any of those questions. And you say that to people. Like, I've been at retreats with you, and people are so curious about you, and you're like, I'm sorry, this is a very sacred act. I'm eating right now. Like,
I'm very social any other time, but when I'm eating, I want to be mindful and enjoy my food.
Yeah, you're definitely like a master and guru about your mind. You're a big teacher about that, about mindful eating. And yeah, because just how the state of being, like, you don't even want to know about any negative news or topics, or you want to, from my understanding, you want to be like, this is such a good place and feeling before you ingest any food.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share anything more about that?
I feel like I could talk about mindful eating a whole episode, so let's move on.
Okay. Yeah, time is almost up. So I want to bring up just 2 quick topics. One is another step is observing thoughts. And we learn this a lot through Vipassana meditation of not, letting people think that, maybe some people think that meditation is like mind control. It isn't. It's about letting thoughts come to the surface, letting anything come to the surface, and letting them pass by as clouds and not clinging to them, getting attached to them, or identifying with them. It's like, oh, I can have an angry thought. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I just had an angry thought, So this non-attachment to even our thoughts. So I really want to highlight that. And then the last is a nice mindful technique is really observing, again, like observing our surroundings. How often do we stop and smell the roses? How often do we acknowledge, just hold a tree, a compliment a flower, like just literally like going and noticing our surroundings and dropping in. And those are moments of very high clarity and presence. And the more we practice this, the more we can be sensitive to subtle sensations and subtle whispers of our higher self. So those are the mindful techniques I thought of.
I
And
like that. Mindfulness is a huge part of mental health counseling. It really helps improve our mood and reduce our anxiety. And I like what you just said there about observing your thought, because that's a huge part of challenging our unhelpful thought, our unhelpful thinking patterns, where we believe if we feel something or think something, it must be true, but it's not. Thoughts and feelings just bubble up. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It's then we have a choice on what we're going to identify and what we're going to get attached to. So it's okay to go, oh, that thought or feeling doesn't feel good. I'm going to let it drift by. I'm going to redirect my attention to the present moment in eating that piece of chocolate that makes me feel good, or whatever, listening to my favorite music that uplifts me, not allowing your mind to go into that judgment, that attachment.
well, thank you so much, Jazz, for your expertise in social work and yeah, and balance in the mind. And I'm so grateful you've been with me along the last few episodes and this journey of, you know, learning more about how other people receive intuition. So I'm so grateful for your time, Jasmine. And for anyone who wants to learn even more about us, Jazz has a really cool online program. I'm going to add this to my website. So please visit my website at www.intuitivebusiness.com. And you can follow both Jasmine and I now in the future and all of the things we're going to be doing, whatever that may be. So thank you again, Jazz, for joining me.
It was so fun. Thank you so much, Jadi.
Thank you for listening to The Dawn of Intuition. I'm your host, Jadi Kindred. Tune in every first and third Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio as we learn to listen to that quiet whisper of wisdom from our higher selves. Dare to dream bigger, take inspired action, and live your authentic truth. Live an intuitive life, feeling more joyful and empowered in everything you do. For more tips and tricks, follow me online at www.intuitivebusinessconnections.com.